Hello, I am back with story number 2 or video number 2 of how my youngest daughter ended up having a pediatric liver transplant. So today is actually 16 years that we got the call. She was a little ladybug that year, and we had went trick-or-treating. So tomorrow's her 16-year anniversary, and she is 18 years old. So let me leave off to where I left off, to where she had the Kasai done and she was having a lot of infections. And what I didn't mention in my other video, and sometimes I say things wrong, but I'm not going back and editing, but you get the drift. So she used to have to get IV antibiotics because of the bacteria that would go in the small intestine, because it was connected to the liver and it's not supposed to be that way. So at the 1 year, when she turned 1 year old, her central line finally went bad because it was just a little tiny line that they had put into her when she was a baby. So they put the port, which the port is much easier. It's under their skin. Her whole first year of life, she had to take sponge baths because of the central line. It has to be completely sealed. Like, you have to keep that. The port is so much better. I even learned how to do the port. It's like a little sponge thing under the skin, and you have this really long needle, and you access it. So the port was good. The other types of things that were happening, like I said, her whole first year was more of the infections from the small intestine. And she got a lot of ascites where she was retaining a lot of fluid, like sometimes. And my daughter always had the best spirit. I never left her, and that's another issue that was really hard, because my 2 younger kids had to be with their dad, and he was not very nice, and it was just a very horrible, stressful thing in life. But everything's good now, so maybe I went through it so I could help others. If you're going through it, I can be your friend or your support. But anyways, to drop all of that, so at the second year, and this is another thing, to let people know the symptoms of liver disease. Liver disease is very horrible when you have it. The symptoms are horrible. So she used to get retained fluid. So she looked like she was pregnant. I mean, you could just see the veins in her belly. And they used to just use diuretics, and she never had to be drained. And just to empty all that fluid out. That was one of the symptoms. Another symptom is she used to itch. She used to itch really bad on her ankles. I don't know if it's different for other people, but because your body, your liver is your filter, and if it's not working right, everything starts acting weird. It's your fluids aren't, your blood, everything is not being filtered, or it's being backed up. So she used to itch a lot on her ankles, poor little thing. I even used to put rubbing alcohol, because I think the burn was better than the itch. I mean, it just used to be, we just used to rub her little feet. And then she had the little arteries on her nose. There's a bunch of little arteries that were showing up on her nose. So after that, then she started having GI bleeds. A GI bleed, you can't stop it. They use a IV drip. You have to stop IV drip with a medication called octreotide. And when there is a GI bleed, you must get to the hospital right away, because those do not clot off and stop by themselves. And what's happening is your liver has so much scar tissue that the blood is just going and hitting all these walls. It has nowhere to go. So then it backs up into the esophagus, where it's really weak up here, and it pops. And that's a GI bleed. So it's either a minor GI bleed where it starts just dripping down, and if your poop is black, that means you have an internal bleed, and that means it's usually a slow bleed, because the blood is going through and digesting, and it turns black. Old blood is black. There was times that was horrible, and I don't even like to remember, but she would throw up, and it was like jelly, like grape jelly. So GI bleeds are just, and I lived like an hour, but prior to me getting pregnant with Alice, I was a truck driver, and I was free, and I truck drove everywhere, and I took my kids with me, and I lived an hour out of town. And that's how quick, boom, life just gives you a curveball, and psh, not no more. Lisa, you're gonna, I had to take care of my baby. So what ended up happening, she was just, she had full-blown liver disease. She had all the symptoms, like I'm telling you, ascites, GI bleeds. She was on a blood pressure medication called propranolol, steroids, and eventually, that's 16 years. She literally she was put on and off of the liver transplant list because it's kind of weird. You could be on your deathbed, but there's certain labs that they look at to determine whether you're going to be put on the list. And there's scores that you have to go by. So we were in towards this last week of this week before we got called for her transplant. We were in and out of the hospital the whole month for GI bleeds. Like, I would go home like one day and she had a GI bleed again. So the doctor was like, we have to do something. Like, they don't want to put her back on the transplant list because remember, I studied everything to be healthy. So I kept her really healthy. So her labs didn't always display that she was whatever they're testing, whatever. So I'm only going to do another 10-minute video. So I'm at 6 minutes. So I'm going to try to talk fast. Maybe I could get the rest of this in. So we were in and out of the hospital in October every other day with the GI bleeds. They put her on the list 2 days ago. So on the 29th, they put her back on the list. We got the call October 31st of 2009. And we got the call. It was around midnight. And they told me that they had a perfect liver for perfect size for her. Our blood type is B positive. So I was always a little funny thing, B positive, Lisa, B positive. And it was a perfect fit liver for her. So the transplant team coordinator, she was so nice, and I remember her name was Marcia, and she was actually married to Dr. Castillo. They were at Palo Alto in Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, and she stayed on the phone with me until, to make sure that you get on the plane. I drove to a little small private airport in Albuquerque where me and my daughter were flown to Palo Alto, to Stanford Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. And I'm going to kind of end it there because then I can start over another video about the whole transplant process. But we drove over the Grand Canyon. That was beautiful. It was kind of scary because we were in a little lifeguard plane. But another hurtful, horrible thing that I had to go through this whole experience was not feeding my daughter. Every single time she had a GI bleed, she got put on NPO, which means you can't have anything to drink or eat. And at one point, she didn't eat for 1 week because they didn't communicate with each other, and they thought that she had gotten to eat in between, and she didn't eat for 1 week. And that's why I tell you to advocate for yourself or your children and never leave your children alone. And I will be back again because I'm almost at 10 minutes, and then I will tell you about the whole transplant process. Thank you very much. And this is the reason why I sell and make my little juices. I'm going to throw this in here. This one is carrot, apple, and lemon. It's called Lisa's Juicy Juice. Feed your cells. And this was a way that I had discovered to keep my daughter healthy and our family healthy, to keep us well after the transplant, because then she's on immune suppressants and her immune system is asleep. And I'll go into that later. But if you follow my business page, this is my business page, Lisa's Juicy Juice, Feed Your Cells, and I have recipes, and I will continue to talk about my